Well, we haven't been together for several weeks, and I had intended this week to talk to you about my career at CNN, where I was medical correspondent. It seemed timely since in the spring of 2026, Ted Turner, who was my ultimate boss while I was in that position, passed away. And a lot of tributes have come his way, of course, because he was accomplished so many things in his life and certainly made a big difference to mine. But that talk is going to have to wait because I'm not in familiar surroundings. As you can see, I'm actually in the hospital in Atlanta in May of 2026 for a workup for a possible heart problem. Apparently, I have not had a heart attack yet, but there is a reasonable suspicion that I'm on the verge of having one. And so because of that, I'm being kept here for an overnight and for a rather invasive test tomorrow, where tubes will be inserted through my arteries into the heart itself or near the top of it, and a dye injected there to see if there's any blockage that could be causing the symptoms that I've been experiencing. So what does that have to do with my growing edge? And why might my grandchildren want to look at this many years later, as I hope they will want to review some of the other talks that we've had together? A couple of things I think make it relevant. First of all, the idea of denying those things that are frightening to us. Certainly the prospect of having had a heart attack or possibly being on the verge of having one is pretty frightening when you think about it, and easy to blow off if you decide that you're imagining things. It is still possible that I am imagining this. Well, certainly not the symptoms, but that the worst possible scenario will not come true because something else unknown caused the symptoms that I've been experiencing over the last several weeks, but dismissing as unimportant or ignoring them altogether. Those, by the way, include dizziness, short breath, some tension in my chest, and some moderate pain radiating through my upper back and into my jaw. All of these are classic symptoms of heart disease. And as a former CNN medical correspondent, I certainly knew this and should have acted on it sooner. I've acted in time, though. I guess I got lucky. But the point I want to make with you is I talked myself into thinking that none of this was important, that it was likely to be very transitory, that it would go away and not come back. And it's only when it didn't go away or come back or continue to persist that I decided that I was being foolish not to practice what I preached. So self-denial here is an important thing, an important lesson for all of us to learn. If you have symptoms of something that could be potentially serious, even if it turns out not to be, you really do need to get that checked if you're in a position to do so. And in the United States, fortunately, we have an excellent medical system that makes that possible. And so I'm taking advantage of it rather than running the risk of getting into a true emergency and possibly just dropping dead suddenly as a result. So that's a rather blunt, but I think important message to convey here, that when something is going on, it's scary, of course. It's certainly inconvenient on top of all that, but nonetheless, necessary for us to take hold of it and set our fears, if we have them, aside. And speaking of fears, most know that I have dealt with cancer over the last several years, and that the beginning of that journey involved a craniotomy, where an operation into my skull took place. In fact, right here at this very hospital. I was very frightened going into that because of the high risk of complications. Similarly now with this angiography, the imaging of my heart, there is a chance for complications. They're much, much reduced than they were with the craniotomy. But nonetheless, I am now sitting in a position of great uncertainty, as tomorrow I will have that exam and find out what's wrong once and for all. Will something go wrong there? Probably not. Will it lead to open heart surgery? Probably not. But both of those things are possible. I'm approaching to you, I think, somewhat calmly because I'm not afraid of those possibilities. I certainly hope they don't happen, but I need for you all to understand the importance of being responsible for our own health and really for, to the extent that we can, what our outcomes might be. We have absolutely nothing to gain by setting it aside, by denying it, by ignoring it, even if we're afraid, because really none of that fixes things. Only facing it, absolutely and steadfastly and deliberately will give us a chance of taking advantage of all that medical science has to offer us and the blessings that God continues to bestow upon us. That's what's keeping me going now over these next 24 hours, and I hope for really many years to come. But whatever the outcome of this procedure is, we need to know that when we do face something that's difficult, inconvenient, frightening, we must nonetheless face it and deal with it forthrightly. Thanks.